Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Ammar, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we are absolutely thrilled to be joined by Dr. Rob Leone, the co-founder of Black River Performance Management, a consulting firm specializing in leadership development, workplace culture, and organizational performance. With over 2 decades of experience, Rob works with executives, teams, and community leaders to build sustainable, people-first systems that drive engagement, collaboration, and results across industries, from nonprofits and government to healthcare, education, and tribal organizations. In addition to his consulting work, Rob has founded and managed multiple businesses, including a micro restaurant, a spin studio, and real estate ventures. His entrepreneurial background gives him a practical, results-driven approach to problem solving, making him a trusted partner for leaders seeking to navigate complex challenges and improve performance through strategy, facilitation, and culture building. Rob, welcome to Founders Future.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here with you.
I'm excited to dive in. I always like to start from the beginning. So take us on a little trip down memory lane to before you started Black River Performance Management. What were you doing at the time? And then what was really the motivation behind starting the company?
That's a great question because I'm not sure a lot of us set out with a particular destination in mind that we actually land in. Think about it in high school. You might not even had a career idea. You might have been wanting to be Superman or something like that. But at some point, we find ourselves on these paths. And if we're willing and open to the windows and doors that are opening along the path, we take some
Mm,
steps, right? So
right.
I've been in academics for a long time. I'm a professor. I spend my time studying and teaching and researching human behavior in the workplace. And so I've been working in that space for over 20 years in a variety of different capacities. And eventually, what occurred to me is what I'm doing in the classroom, and there's a high demand in it, as evidenced by the people attending our classes, but also their feedback when they're saying, "Hey, can you come into our company and help us deal with this culture thing or this performance thing?" The more frequently that occurred, the more started to facilitate opportunities for new conversations. And what I love and hate at the same time about higher education is that we have the structured format. We have this ability to go much deeper in many instances than someone might watching a podcast or reading a book. But the other side of it is it's pretty regimented and rigid. And we follow semesters. We don't necessarily follow the flow of life, as the speed of business can go really quick, can fall apart really quick, and then slow down. It's just all over the place. The cool thing is that I get to take what I do in the classroom and do it in real life with organizations at a
That's
much faster rate where I could see directly the changes in their life and their experiences.
Yeah. Was there a particular moment where you were like, oh, this could turn into a business? Or was it just demand coming from people asking you, hey, Rob, can you help us with this? Can you help us with that? And then it helped you connect the dots.
Yeah, so I was raised in a family of non-entrepreneurs, really taking the safe path. And I learned a lot of those lessons. And it wasn't until I started to get into some committee work and community relations, economic development work at the university level that I started to realize, look, this is all learned. And if you have an appetite for risk and ambition and rolling up your sleeves, there's space for everyone in this place. And so over time, as I continue to help those organizations do opportunity recognition, site recognition, relocations, things like that, became really clear that, look, I could do this on a much smaller level based on what I know and make something out of this. And who knows if something will run out of this or not. And then, like I said, if you're open and you're looking, I think doors present themselves that you could pass through. And that's essentially what happened. And COVID helped a lot because it really rattled the marketplace and
Yeah.
rattled people. And so all of a sudden, we went from hustling, and I think we're going to get into this in a bit, hustling to try to demonstrate worth to people seeking us out and now driving all of our business by referrals.
Okay, very interesting. Before we get into that aspect of the business, let's give the listeners more context
Sure.
into Black River Performance Management. Who would you say is your ICP? Who's your ideal customer? Who do
Yeah.
you to work with? What does that look
So
like?
yeah. So for us, we're actually industry agnostic,
Okay.
context specific. So we worked with everything from startups to Fortune 100. We have clients around the world. What's in common with all of them is that they're concerned about the organizational performance as well as employee well-being and overall health. And they see that, look, in order for us to be successful, I need to take care of my people. In order for my people to be successful, I need to create good opportunities for them. I need to understand what they need. And so we do this in a variety of different environments. We've had Supreme Court judges as our clients. We've had pharmacists, forensic scientists, presidents of university. It really depends. It's our real our value add is our reputation in many instances because we do things a little bit different, and our testimonials and referrals just help keeping us going.
That makes perfect sense. It sounds like a lot of it is psychographic instead of demographic when it comes
Mhm.
to who your ideal customer is.
Absolutely.
Let's say you have somebody in front of you who's interested in your services. Maybe they're listening
Yep.
to the podcast. What do the offers look like? Is there one core offering or is there a suite?
Yeah, so we specialize in human behavior as it relates to culture and performance and leadership. And so there isn't one offer. What I would do is I would sit there and listen to them and hear what they're telling me, their pain points, and if it's something I could absolutely help with, I would respond with identifying the things within their conversation and their comments and almost reading between the lines. Because in many instances, our clients don't have the language for what it is they're experiencing. They're
Mm,
grasping for terms, try to articulate that. Look, my employees are not motivated. Well, what does that really mean? So I'll spend a lot of time listening. And then from there, respond with let's figure out what's really going to address your root causes, the fundamental issues contributing to the performance deficiencies. We're not going to tackle symptoms. We'll address the symptoms as we go through this. We'll use those as indicators, but we'll really get to your foundational elements because I want to be a good steward of your resources so that it's an investment, not an expense.
mm,
And so I want to make sure I'm listening and determining whether our team could respond to this in a way that's in the best interest of that client. And so that could range from personality assessments and helping people connect better around communication to facilitating high stake meetings, strategic planning meetings, all these different things. And just our expertise is human behavior, but it also helps that we're trained trainers and teachers. So we have fun doing this and do it in a way that people lean in and they get to laugh and they get to connect. And then we also recognize that what we're doing in this workplace, in this organization, is directly benefiting them in terms of once they leave the job to go home, to be with friends and family. Like well-being flows back and forth. And that's really what we try to accomplish through whatever that initiative looks like. Might be training, might be strategy, might be, I do more business advising, not so much coaching, but let's figure out what you need quickly and
mm.
respond to those things.
It sounds like it is fairly customized,
Yeah.
if not very customized.
Yeah.
Walk me through. And the reason that I ask this is because we have a lot of coaches, consultants that listen to this.
Yeah.
And I always like to bring up the idea of scalability when it comes to
Yeah.
from a fulfillment standpoint, right? Because
Yeah.
you see with this type of business, there's inherent limitations, one could say, in
Mhm.
terms of how many clients you can take, unless you
Yep.
either bring on more coaches or you
Yep.
tailor it in a particular way, the fulfillment model. So when you think about scalability with your fulfillment model, what is
Mhm.
your perspective on that? And is there anything that you're thinking about tweaking or future plans?
Yeah, I think of it really in terms of a stepwise process, right? What's the number one big obstacle for us? And that is where the talent exists, right? And so I am the expert on all this stuff. There's only one of me. What is it that what I do is easy for me to train, pass on, develop, certify, coach to get the people that are associates of ours, affiliates of ours, to be able to have a certain level of competence so that it creates space for me to move into other stuff. So I'm very clear and deliberate about that, but that's not easy. And then you talk about coaches. The strength of the coach is that the knowledge they possess, the experience they possess. And you can't just find someone else that shows up with that same recipe of success. That's a part of your brand. So we got to think about this in terms of what is it that we do, can we do, to move to that next level. And it just so happens to be that there's some foundational development things that we do that we could farm out to team members, affiliates, because we can
Got
get them upskilled and then we could go on to kind of that next level. Look, most people can teach, train, coach. They have some level of ability to do that because their heart's in the right place. And so if I could get the right content in those people, I could get them ready to do this. And then I move on to the more sophisticated things.
Got it. Very cool. And yeah, I like that thought process of what could I train and pass on, what can't I? And obviously splitting those two and then hiring people accordingly. Now, you alluded to this earlier, but when it comes to client acquisition and lead generation, it sounds like it's 100% referrals or mainly referrals, but can you expand
Mainly.
on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think a lot of businesses go through certain cycles. And one of the tough things is when you're young as a business, you're hungry, right? Because you're trying to build legitimacy, you're trying to build clout, you're trying to say, hey, look, I helped this other group, therefore I can help you. And so one of the lessons I learned is that we can't turn people if they're not interested, right? You lead the horse to water, you can't make them drink, that concept. And so the shift really occurred once we started to have some people that had the same values as us. And us living in a small market, that was tough because that required us to get outside of our market to create critical mass. And once you have that values alignment, right? It's the same thing when you're dating, when you're with friends, like that values alignment is huge because that is your common ground and that's your springboard to move forward to have conversations. And so once we've done that, then you're into those networks and those people that you've serviced and worked with who had great experiences have friends that have similar values. So it's a really easy one-off, handoff build-up to start building some momentum there.
Very interesting. So it sounds like it's referrals, networking, and really the relationships that you've built. Have I'm super curious. Have you heard of something called the theory of constraints?
That the perceptions of constraints and that we're subject to what we perceive and believe are the constraints, or
It's,
just trying to,
I think that's something else actually, but the
okay.
theory of constraints is from a management philosophy perspective. It's a business thought process where essentially the idea is there is always one critical constraint in a company that if that were to be unlocked, it would
Yep.
open it would allow a lot more business to flow through. If we were to think of it like a conveyor belt, something
Yeah.
constricting that conveyor belt. Now, because I've done so many of these, I find that typically speaking, it's either offer or leads or sales or fulfillment. That's generally, I'm obviously it's going to be one of those things.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
else is
Yeah.
there?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't even have to do this for a long time. As I said that, I was like, that sounds stupid. But anyways, I'm curious for you because a lot of the people that I've been talking to recently, they have a great offer, but their constraint is their lead flow. There's this
Mhm.
one gentleman that I talked to earlier this week, and he said he gets a lot of referrals, he gets a lot of word of mouth, but he expressed frustrations to me because he said, in his experience, it's not predictable and it's not super consistent because it's hard to
Mhm.
pull that lever and get more
Yeah.
of those types of leads. So I'm curious for you, when you think about building predictability when it comes to lead generation in particular, what is your experience? What is your thought process, and maybe any initiatives that you're thinking of implementing?
Yeah. That's a tough one because without them, where do we go? And that is something that we struggle with too. And in terms of not building critical mass in the markets we already serve because those relationships really serve those areas. It's these new opportunities, new markets, new areas of the country, or new areas of the world
Mhm.
working at. And yeah, we experience that same challenge too, is and the concept of warm leads, hot leads, all these different things, right? And you would start talking about sales navigator and things like that. It's a big piece of the puzzle that as most entrepreneurs don't set out to do unless they're looking to build a marketing company, they're not setting out to do marketing, right? They're setting
Yeah,
out to build the widget to change the world, but people need to learn about it. So how do we go about doing that? And we've explored a variety of different partnerships, models, and so we work through this in a variety of different ways. But yeah, so that's the pinch point for us
yeah,
as well as most. I think that's really true with the knowledge-based economy is that how do you if you don't have a mechanism to get it out, how do you
yeah,
people know that you exist?
100%, especially in a time where there is so much noise out there.
Yeah,
How do you get people to know it exists, and how do you stand out amongst all the noise with the right
yeah,
messaging, with the right positioning? And it's funny you said they're not, unless you're looking to build a marketing company, they don't plan on doing marketing. It's like a necessary evil. So I have to eat my vegetables, it's whatever.
yeah.
But I guess once a lead does come in through the door, what is the sales process at that point for them to turn into a client?
Yeah, really, it's about listening,
Mhm.
right? It's hearing them where they're at and determining whether or not I could do them good work and really honor and serve them. That's one of the nice things about the flexibility of what we offer is that we don't have a canned approach or a canned program that we need to drive everyone through because that's how we present or that's how we coach, right? So we really set back and listen and determine what is that? Is this a communication issue? Is this a personality? Is this a behavioral issue tied to motivation science? What is this thing? And we have these conversations and sometimes depending on the nature of the conversation there's a next round of conversation with a bigger team to gather more
Mhm.
input to gather more perspective. Like our favorite clients are the ones that are like, hey, I got a problem. And I think I have an idea what it is, but I also know that I really don't know a whole lot other than my craft, my expertise. And so I'd love to talk to you about what we're experiencing, but also if it's helpful, I'll open up my staff to you. So I have some sessions coming up in the fall with a new group, and we'll do one-on-one homework. I will work with them to determine what those pain points are at the individual and team level perceptions beliefs, things like that, so that A, I'm priming the experience, but also the other side of it is really gathering real-time information that a lot of people aren't comfortable speaking up in front of a bunch of other people to say, I think this is really what's happening. So it really disarms the process and makes it easy for us to navigate what's truly going on. And like I said, at the end of the day, we want to be good stewards of their time, their energy, their resources, actually address what it is that they're truly facing.
Yeah, I love that. Do you find that it's a longer or shorter sales cycle, or does it really depend on the prospect?
No, it really depends on the prospect. And usually when we have these conversations, we've been doing this for so long at such a deep level that I can have a conversation with someone for 20 minutes, really listen to hear what's not being said, to get a sense. Once I know what their industry and context looks like, I can make some really quick progress with them to move them through this. And then what we do in terms of moving forward to close that sale our pricing's flexible. Like we really work to align. We believe in what we do. It's so much that we want to make sure that we can make change and influence people as long as we're still having fun. And so some of our clients are just starting up and they don't have those funds right now at the level we typically go at. So we look at different ways to be creative, to support them, to get them moving, because we know that we do good work to people, take care of people, they're going to
Hmm.
do work. They'll represent you really well.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that, especially when when you have conviction in what it is that you do and
Yeah.
that you can drive results. Being
Yeah.
creative is not a problem whatsoever. And people will send you more referrals because of that. They'll be
Yeah.
happier, more testimonials.
Yeah. Exactly.
When you think of your vision, let's say over the next 12 to 24 months and what you're looking to accomplish with the company, are there any specific revenue targets, performance targets, or just goals in general that you're striving towards? Walk me through that.
We spent the last year trying to determine if we're going to grow or stay the course of where we're at. And so we put a lot of resources into building out the foundation to grow, right? So one example is I've probably been on 60 podcasts in the last year as
Wow.
part of that effort to generate interest, to bring information to the public, stuff like that. It hasn't been easy, right? These are things outside of it's just like the marketing piece, right? And it's stuff that I didn't never intended to do, but at some point I have to touch
Yeah.
because I need to be involved with the messaging, right? And so the next year to year and a half, that's really tough because the US, as you're well aware of, is really the administration change is just changing the dynamics, changing how people talk about things. And so there's a lot of fear and uncertainty. And when we see that our nimble, well-prepared organizations know how to navigate that space, but a
Mm.
lot of organizations don't.
Yeah.
And unless they have an openness and a mindset towards, look, we can't just sit here and wait. A lot of organizations really fell on their heels during COVID because we'll just sit here and wait and see how this sorts out. Like, we can't. We have to be strategic, and we need to, during these downtimes, start future proofing our organization, despite the uncertainty, right? And so for us, it's determining what this market is going to bring moving forward. Who are we going to work with, and how is that going to shift? But also, what's their kind of behavior and psychology of that organization as they're through this, whether this uncertainty, fear, all these different things that take it get the best of us and that really drain us emotionally, right? So we're
Yeah.
looking at those pieces to determine how do we respond. Because for
Got it.
me, strategically, it's important for me to know my stuff and as well as know how the future is going to need my stuff. And so that I can start to figure out how I need to have these conversations with people to
Hmm.
start moving them in that direction.
Powerful. So it sounds like you're building or you've built the foundation to grow. You're looking to scale, but it's about navigating the waters that we find ourselves in
Yeah.
at the current moment.
Yeah, I think we're ready. We're positioned really well to scale because of the work we've put in. It's determining, and we have people showing up every couple of days and, hey, new business. Can you do this in this month? Can you do this? Can you come out here? And so it's great.
Yeah.
It's just I could tell you from a year ago, who we're talking to is very different day in
Hmm.
and day out than
Interesting.
we were. So we have to be able to, like, to the point of some of these concepts, right? Pivot and adjust and recalibrate. And like I said, I think we're sitting in a really good spot for this, but it's watching how the cards get laid out and see who's
Yeah.
ready to step up, who needs something, or who's in trouble. I love working with organizations that are in trouble because for some people, that's when they start to care about things at a
Yeah.
different
When your
level.
back is against the wall, you have
Yeah,
no other options. Yeah, no,
yeah,
that makes perfect sense. And it sounds like a part of it too is generating more leads and just
yeah.
more demand and getting in front of more people.
Yep,
That's
building that network, lead gen path, and then the network, and constantly having conversations with people. And this is what I think a lot of people don't realize, especially when I mentor and coach young consultants, young coaches, is don't quit your job. Keep your day job and build this business on the side
yeah.
because it's going to take you a year or two of having these conversations, these lead pieces that you're talking about to really become something. They don't really convert typically very quickly unless they're in trouble or they're ready to spend money. And we get things a year and a half later say, okay, we're ready next month to go. And we're like, okay, we need to talk first, but let's see where we're at.
Yeah. Those are always great. Well,
Yes, yeah, they're
after
bonuses.
yeah, yeah, it's nice. It's like sometimes I'll look in the CRM and I'll be like, wow, I talked to you 4 years ago.
Yeah,
That's nuts. But honestly, you answered my next question, but maybe you can elaborate a little bit
yeah,
more. If you were talking to new entrepreneurs,
yeah,
starting specifically in 2025, with
yeah,
everything happening,
yeah,
AI, technology, wars here, wars there,
yeah.
what advice do you have for them? How do they navigate this murky water?
Yeah, my advice is very similar to the advice I had during COVID. People are like, look, I have a big savings account. I'm ready to get out of this organization. I'm ready to get out of this uncertainty. I'm just going to quit. I have 9,000 connections on Facebook. And so I'm going to grow my business. And my advice is, first off, you get to do whatever you want to do. But second, there's a runway here to get this plane off the ground. And what most people don't realize is that runway is a lot longer, especially in our space. Not when you're necessarily selling a widget, but I know inventors that are still, they're in year 12 of trying to bring this thing to market. So you need that space. So if you're in a position where you could start building your resources, start building your framework, determining what your messaging is, right? Because messaging is huge. And we struggle as business owners, we struggle with messaging because we feel it in our heart, but we don't necessarily have the words so that someone else on the other end can understand it. So all these things are little activities you can start doing, start putting these pieces together so that you still have your day-to-day stability of a paycheck coming in to the point that eventually you're like, look, I have enough momentum with clients and I think I'm going to make what I made or I can make less and I'm happy to grow into this. Like I said, at the end of the day, people get to do what they want to do, but It's sometimes tough out there. And in this space, that's what we see. We see a lot of churn. We see a lot of people go out and blow through their savings, and it really complicates their life at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a great point where you feel it in your heart, but it's difficult to articulate it in a way where
Yeah,
somebody perceives the value of you being able to charge high ticket, quote unquote. I love that. You mentioned something else where it's you're laying down the foundation to be able to scale further. Can you give people advice on what that actually looks like? What do you mean when you say laying down the
sure.
foundation?
Part of it relates back to what I mentioned earlier, just a moment ago about, look, if you're in another job, you could build your materials. You could start building, if you're going to, let's say you're going to be a coach, what is that program going to look like? And my perspective is, and I have this conversation with a lot of people in this space, you need to build this according to who you are and your brand. So,
Mm,
what is your value add, and how are you bringing that to someone? Words aside, like, what makes you different? For us, what makes us different is that we're science-based, research-backed frameworks that have been vetted, and then we take that information and build solutions that are easy for people to use in the workplace that are supporting the behavioral science without even knowing that they're doing it. That's essentially, so that's our competitive advantage. But what's going to be yours as a coach, right? Like, you might have scaled some companies and sold them. Awesome. Then let's look at your skills in terms of coaching. What are you going to bring? And so for some people, and I don't love these people, and I don't mean to offend people, they're like tough talk business, like doers, hustlers. It's a very aggressive approach. That's your brand, that's your angle. Then own it and run with it. Other people are going to want someone that's a little bit more listening oriented, not like coach, like football coach oriented. We got to find who we are that makes us unique as it
yeah.
relates to this widget, as it relates to this product, or as it relates to this service that we provide that no one can touch, right?
Yeah. 100%. That's fantastic, fantastic piece of advice there. What is the best way for people to reach out to you if they're interested in working
Sure.
with you? What does that look like?
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for the offer. So our company, Black River Performance Management, our web address, because that's such a long word, right? A long title, is Black River, the letter P for performance and the letter M for management.com. And once you get in there, it'll give you an overview of the primary services we provide. Like I said, anything that relates to human behavior, whether it's strategic hiring, there's stuff that's not even on there that we do. We love to have that conversation. Or you check me out on LinkedIn, and it's Rob or Robert. And as you mentioned, Leon's the last name, but the interesting thing is it's spelled like lion, right? So it's Robert and then Lion on LinkedIn. Check me out. Stuff like these podcasts will be there. I write blogs for people to understand the stuff at a different angle. Love to
Yeah,
connect and support with people.
awesome. Rob, thank you so much for your time today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, anytime. Any final words before I let you go?
No, it's you just got to get at it, right? And
That's
do
it.
it.
Let's go. So that wraps up another insightful episode of Founders Future. To our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to check out blackriverpm.com. And don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And if you are a business owner and you're looking to scale your business and really enhance your sales and marketing efforts, visit closers.io to discover how we can support your growth journey. Until then, keep on climbing.